This will be an introduction to the largely undiscovered body of work of Greek Alexandrian artist PolyXene Kasda. It aims to contribute to the field of myth studies and to the interdisciplinary art history discourse in Greece. I will review Kasda's art practice in relation to her project Myth Network, which covers almost 30 years of empirical research focused on the study of myth. I argue that her methodology brings in an original understanding of the field, which so far has been dominated by Western male references as Claude Lévi-Strauss, Roland Barthes, Hans Blumberg, and others. It is therefore critical to document more female and diverse voices. In this context, Kasda can be acknowledged as a prominent artist in the field of myth studies. PolyXene Kasda is an interdisciplinary artist and polymath with a wide knowledge background. She received academic education in physics chemistry in Cairo and sociology psychology in Athens, while trained in fine arts at the Sir Hermann Besançon workshop of Alexandria in Egypt. From her early years, she has been working at the intersection of art, science, and the humanities. Some of her works during the 70s and 80s include the creation of an edible woman body out of cheese that was eaten collectively during a performative act in Athens, as well as a series of analog pixel artworks. In the mid-80s, Kasda held a teaching position at the film school of Mariana Ziku in Athens. As part of this, she started an interdisciplinary research on visual culture and art history. She created a film documentary that explored the relation of art history perception and informatics. The documentary, titled The Adventure of the Eye, was directed by Marco Gastin and was broadcasted on the Hellenic radio television in 1986. Continuing with her research, she published a book titled The Conscious Eye, Art Perception Informatics, which can be considered a landmark for the connection of art theory and artificial intelligence in Greece. The book is currently being republished under the History of Art Laboratory in the School of Fine Arts at the University of Vienna. What is maybe interesting to mention is that in the past proceedings of the TGT conference published in 2018, I presented this as an original research outlining Kasda's contribution in the field of art theory and artificial intelligence. This included her book publication, her visit to MIT, her film documentary, and her active involvement in issues of educational technology, including the organization of a historical conference with participating speakers Poly Kasda, Χρόνης Κυνηγός, Yannis Kotsanis, and the renowned Dr. Celia Hoyles and Dr. Richard Noss. In the beginning of the 90s, Kasda shifted her research from human-machine art perception, pointing out the limitations of contemporary science to tackle art and culture in depth. In this context, Kasda created Myth Network, which was her life-spanning project, focused on the study of myth. She describes Myth Network as a space-generating metaphor of art symptoms that elicit the mythical condition. Myth Network has been a radical art study on myth that moves between the epistemic profound, the artistic pristine, and the scientific profane. Myth Network was first presented by art historian Elzbieta Koshelak and documented by the Greek publication house Govosti in 1991. Koshelak described the project as a new open system of art that introduced the concept of myth and dematerialization in the new communication media landscape. Koshelak referred to Myth Network as a living network system of coded artistic information able to form a global interconnected community. Myth Network started as a liminal experience that Kasda had in the bottom of a dehydrated lake, which was documented in detail by photographer Stefanos Samios in 1990. She described a type of ritual state of mind while walking in the lakebed of Mornos in Greece and entering a ruined temple along abandoned stone buildings. Her memoir ultimately worked out as a conception of Myth Network and the aesthetics of sustained liminality. Although this experience was not an intentional artistic act, It can be considered as an art-based knowledge discovery system, one that functions as a heuristic device where new knowledge can emerge in disruptive and original ways. One of Kasda's central references, Romanian philosopher Lucian Blaga, conceived this process as a cognition minus, close to Cornelius Castoriadis' radical imagination that suggests an ex nihilo imaginary, and in Kasda's term, something essential missing. The first artwork within Myth Network was a large-scale dematerializing community art project. Kasda distributed biodegradable microstatues named chrysalis. They were received by people worldwide and planted into theological and mythological significant places. Around 300 places in 27 countries were part of this, creating transient collective memory. It can be argued that Myth Network composed an ideography of the World Wide Web before its spreading. Myth Network 1 was documented at the National Museum of Contemporary Art in Athens in 1991 as a donation by Greek pioneer artist Pantelis Xagoraris. Kasda's core concepts and vision of Myth Network was documented in her book publication Pirisporos Art, Science, Mythology in 1994 under Egokeros Publication House. It was an experimental and highly disruptive writing which attempted to outline the mythical condition in a narrative format. Pirisporos was conceived as a highly disputable book. As she recalls, it disturbed and chased away the audience she had gained with her previous publication, The Conscious Eye. The book uses a transgressive writing mode, and it starts by juxtaposing a reference to an ancient philosopher with the lyrics of an anonymous folklore poet. It further continues with a prolific number of references in chapters titled as A Cannibalistic Galaxy and Jumper Genes, and Sirius, Serialism, Syrians, and Clockwise Enzymes. Seen after almost 25 years, Pirisporos can be considered a bold and original treatise on myth. After the publication, Kasda presented Myth Network in a video documentary directed by Makis Faros and produced under Icona, Center of Research and Audiovisual Applications, directed by Dodo and Manthos Adorineos. In the video, Kasda described Myth Network as a collective synergetic act that aimed to elicit mythical pedia and experience on a liminal aesthetic level. Myth Network was conceived as a long-term art project spanning from 1990 to eventually 2017. It included, among others, paper-based cartographies which invited participants to explore latent natural and cultural elements through community art expeditions and hiking paths. She also designed RL board games with illustrated cards that mapped local oral histories, together with renowned game artist Antonis Papadoniou. Her community art projects have been described as social action generative art, with the acronym SAGA, which is a term coined by John Kondos, Emeritus Professor of Artificial Intelligence at the University of Athens, who has studied Kasda's work from a computer science perspective. Additionally, Kasda invented a new material called PixieKappa or PXK, after the acronym of her name, that was used for creating large-scale public art installations on a global scale. PXK could easily be carried around as a wrapped tapestry. Her work also included the creation of lexomorphes, which were ideograms of cryptographic codes based on the ancient numeral system of language codification. This included a 3D ideogram of the word chrysalis, a spatial configuration in the form of light installation, and other 2D geometrical projections of various words. Here is also a scene from the first presentation of Myth Network, where composer Anargyros Derniozos, sitting at the piano, performed together with his music group Sidas, an aleatoric music score that was based on a mapping algorithmic of the word chrysalis. Kasda's art and textual documentary processes included the creation of a large number of non-fiction narratives and digital doodles. Many years later, Kasda will recognize Timeus Chora as a foundation of mythical topology and mythical agents, analogous to Hoffman's conscious agents. Myth Network draws on scientific concepts of Kasda's academic study fields that lie at the intersection of speculative materialism, transcendental collectivism, and mythical pedia, gradually unfolding her immersive art-based practice, the aesthetics of sustained liminality.